What does that even mean, Bowers Game Corner?
Ahoy there, YouTube! I'm back again today for another game review, and today I'm very excited to check out Witches of the Revolution from Atlas Games. This is for 1 to 4 players, take about 30 to 60 minutes to play, and it's for ages 13 plus. And in Witches of the Revolution, you're going to be taking control of Witches of the Revolution, and you're going to be trying to do various different tasks. You're going to be doing various different events that are all historically based. It is a cooperative deck building game with some very interesting quirks and quinks and a pretty dang high difficulty level to boot. But is it good? Let's open it up and I'll tell you what I think. Alrighty then, we're going to take a look at what you're going to get inside of Witches of the Revolution. So first and foremost, we're a handy dandy rule booklet, 3 pages, double-sided, full color, full of pictures, illustrations, examples. Very well done. Huge thumbs up on the rule booklet. Great job on that. So in Witches of the Revolution, this is a cooperative deck builder where you're going to start with a really crummy hand of cards with your specific witch, and then you are going to purchase, aka recruit, various different nefarious characters from this middle row down here, trying to solve these events, which will be down here. When you solve events, you'll be able to take one of these tokens each time you solve an event, and if you get rid of all the tokens up here, you will win the game because you've completed 4 big missions. What am I talking about though? Let's go over the components, then we'll get into the gameplay, and all this will start to make sense because it is a relatively simple game. So first and foremost, we have this board, and I love this board. It is so user-friendly. So right now it looks incredibly busy and cluttered, and you're like, why is there so much text on this? I thought this was a deck building game. But in actuality, this is such a useful board. So huge thumbs up on this this board. Another thing I want to do before we get going is I want to give them a huge shout out on this box insert. Very, very well done box insert. It has room for everything. Everything doesn't move around once you put the board on top of it. So big thumbs up on the box insert. But back to the board here. So let's just go over all the various different stuff on the board. So first we have the recruit row right here. This is where you're going to have the opportunity to add recruits to your hand by purchasing them. Now this game's a little bit different from your other typical deck builders where you spend coins to do it. In this game, you're actually going to spend the stars on your cards. And when you spend these stars, you lose them. Say for instance, if I wanted to purchase this lady right here and she cost 2 stars, I would actually have to literally discard these 2 cards. So they would be gone, and then this card goes on top of my deck. It doesn't go into my discard pile, it goes on top of my deck. And there are some other quirks I'm going to be talking about with how this game works. But you're really going to see 3 main characters, and these are the 3 main characters. You got the dedicate to Ulrika, this guy, and then this guy. And what you really want out of these are going to be these symbols on the left. These symbols on the left are very, very useful because you're going to use those in order to solve these. And these are going to be events. And events suck. Events are going to really start annoying you because you're going to draw an event once each turn. It actually has the turns, what you're going to do on each turn right up here. And the events are going to do various different bad things. Some of them will do bad things when you flip them over. Some of them will do bad things progressively. So as you can see, there's a bell here and a gun here. And if those particular events get to those particular spots, then bad things are going to happen. So for instance, if this card gets right here, then you're going to go down 1 on the tyranny track, aka the liberty track over here, which I'll explain in a minute, and that is bad. Also, this is one of the ways you're going to lose the game. So we talked about how you need to complete all 4 of these to lose the game, but let's just say you're playing a 4-player game. If you ever get an event right here, then boom, you've lost the game. 3-player game, 2-player game, and a solo game. So very useful, all the stuff on the board right here. Also, there's a gun right here, and there's going to be some events with guns on them, and if a gun event gets right there, then that means you're going to have to kill one of these people in the recruit row, and once this recruit row is done and spent, it's gone. You don't get any more people to recruit into your hand, which is normally pretty bad. There's a couple different ways you're going to be able to lose this game. So let's take another closer look at these cards, though, because this is really how you're going to win the game as well. So when you flip it over, let's see, no more than 2 witch cards may be used to overcome this event. So you're going to have a stronger witch on this one. But it's either going to take 3 yellow stars or 3 blue cat heads or whatever they are right there. Now, let's just say I happen to have that. So let's just say I say I'm going to solve this event right here. I am going to act this event. So what I could do is I could spend this card right here because it definitely has 3 blues. This card gets put down in the event discard, which is right here. Boom. But before it does that, I get to take either a yellow or a blue token from up here. And this is how I'm going to be able to win the game. These are called trophies. So when you complete events, you will earn these trophies. And then these trophies are also going to help you do various different things for the game. You can use this trophy to make things cheaper. I believe you have 2 of them. You can use these trophies to complete various different events. So let's say you only had 2 blue cat's heads and you needed 3. Well, you could use this and that would help you. Now, another nice thing about the events, because they are going to be coming each turn, is that other people will be able to help you. Obviously not in a solo game, but in a 2, 3, and 4 player game, when you're playing this, other people will be able to contribute 1 card to help you out. Now, they can only use 1 symbol on that card, but it still can really help you in solving these events. And the events, at least in my experience, most of the time is how you're going to lose the game or as a result of it. Because once there's some cards in here, oh, they're really bad. They'll move the tyranny down 2 times as opposed to 1 time when they get to these bells. And if you get those going, you're just in a world of hurt. But we're not going to talk about that. So that is going to be your event track. It's very important to the game. Now, over here on the right, we have our Liberty track. And I mentioned a little bit earlier, if the cards with the bell symbols, the events with the bell symbols get to here, then you go 1 down on this track. And as you progressively go down on this track, bad things happen. So for instance, you might notice in the recruit deck, this says cost as printed. So this one would cost you 2 stars. This is reduced cost by a star if any magic icon matches. So that means if I were to purchase this card, at least one of the cards I'm using has one of these purple hands, this only costs me 2 stars as opposed to 3 stars. And once it gets all the way over here, it's going to cost 1 less. So if this were right here, it would only cost me 3 stars as opposed to 2 stars. But once you start going down on this track, you're going to lose those bonuses. So no effects, reduce recruiting costs, so that essentially cancels this one out. Increase recruiting cost by a star, so that's going to make everything more expensive. No recruiting allowed when it's at 1, which means you just can't recruit at all. And then, of course, if you get down here to tyranny, well, then you lose the game completely. Now, over here on the flip side, we have the moon track. And the moon track is going to go up every time you shuffle your deck, because while this is a deck building game, it's not your typical deck building game because you don't want to shuffle your cards too much. Now, it says, as you can see, as you progressively go up this track, it has +4, +3, +2, +1. What does that mean? Well, that's going to add to those events. So, for instance, let's just say that we were right here on the track of the +2. That would mean you need either 4 red or 5 blue in order to solve this event. So as the game progresses and as you shuffle your deck more, and some of these stinking cards will make you shuffle your deck, the events are going to become harder and harder to solve, which is really kind of bad. Now, there are some things in this game that will help you out throughout the game. First and foremost, if you're ever able to take all the tokens from underneath one of these cards, then each one is going to have a special perk that you'll be able to do. So one player may immediately recruit a face-up recruit card at no cost. That's really useful. This one is remove an event from the line without overcoming it. That one can be huge as well. And there are some different ones that are included in the game. So there's a little bit of a variety in that aspect as well. But for the most part, I mean, the artwork's great, but it is just... the theme doesn't come across as well as you might like in this game, but we'll talk more about that in the pros and cons. The other big thing that's going to help you out in this game, aside from the fact that it's cooperative and other people can help you by giving you a card when you're completing events, is the fact that in here you're going to have what are called relics and blessings. So relics are going to be cards you'll be able to purchase for free. They don't have any cost on them at all, but the catch with relic is when you use the relic, it's gone forever. It's just gone, you use it, and boom, it's done, but it is going to really help you out, and it doesn't cost you anything to recruit it, but it does cost you a recruit action. So relics are really awesome, but these blessings are even better. So the blessings are really going to help you out when they come up. And the way this sets it out, it's kind of like a pandemic, where you're going to specifically set out relics, so you'll get a relic once each 9 recruits. So you'll never be exactly sure when it's coming up. You might get 2 in a row potentially, which could be very lucky or very unfortunate, depending on what phase of the game it is. But let's read this. When flipped, do not advance the recruits. Instead, choose one of these options, then banish this card. Any player may recruit a face-up decadent or celebrant for free. So these 2 right here. or do not add an event this turn, which can be a really big, useful moment for you. So those are the things that are going to help you in the game, but let's run you through a mock turn and you'll quickly understand what I'm talking about. So this is like your typical deck builder. When you first start the game, you are going to draw 5 cards. If you're playing solo, then you'll draw 6 cards. And I really do enjoy the solo. It doesn't change too much about the game, but I'll talk more about that a little bit later. So now, we are going to add a recruit, but you skip that the very first turn. But normally, a lot of the time, the deck would be, let's just say that nobody recruited anything last turn. So how this would work is, everything slides to the right, add a recruit. It's a relic, which is great. So now I add an event. So I'm going to flip over this event right here. When flipped, move the Liberty track marker 1 space toward Tyranny. So that is a bummer. And that goes in that first spot right here, and I have to move the Liberty track down. So no effects reduce recruiting costs. So this is essentially canceled out, and that cancels out as well, which is a little bit of a bummer. So now what I'm going to do is I can act and / or recruit. So obviously I'm going to recruit this relic. Like, that's a no-brainer. I'm going to recruit this relic. Now, unlike most deck builders, this is going to go bloop on top of my deck right here. So it's going to go on top of my deck as opposed to in my discard pile. Next, I can also act if I want. So for this one right down here, I'm going to need 2 red or 3 blue. So I'll take a look at my hand, and I could go ahead and I could do these 2 reds right here. And so you know what, I will do that, and I put those in my discard pile, which obviously probably wouldn't be on the board. And now this event is going to go away. But luckily, since I solved this event, I either get to take a red trophy from up here or a blue trophy from up here. Now, those blue trophies should be up there. So I'm just going to go ahead and take this red trophy and I'm going to put it right in front of me, and that is going to be what I'm going to do there. So then I go to the next phase. I can discard any cards that I would like to. So I can discard any number of cards that I want. Now, generally, you don't want to do this, though, because, as I mentioned, drawing cards or shuffling your deck is going to make you go up on this moon track over here, which is bad. So typically, you're not going to discard, but in some special circumstance, if you're looking for specific cards, you might do that. Last, you have the option to draw back up to 5 cards, if you would like. Now, this is really one of those unique aspects of the game as well, because you don't always want to do it, because sometimes it will force you to shuffle your deck, and you might already have a good hand. So let's just say that, this was my hand right now, and I'm like, you know what? There's a blue event going on down here, so I really don't need to shuffle my deck right now. So I just say, you know what? This is the end of my turn. Now, so let's just go to the next one. So we'd add a recruit, boom, like that. We'd add an event, boom, like that. I'm not even going to read what on the text is, but I'm going to show you how recruiting works a little bit. So when you recruit, how it's going to work is you spend that number. So let's just say I'm going to spend these 2 stars right here to purchase her, but these cards go away. They're completely out of the game, and then this goes bloop right on top of my deck. But you're going to continue to do this either until you get rid of all these tokens up here and you completed all 4 of these big milestone events, or until you die based on this track or based on that track. And that, in a nutshell, is how you're going to play Witches of the Revolution. Alrighty then, Witches of the Revolution from Atlas Games. What are my final thoughts? Let's go over the pros, let's go over the cons. First, on the con side, not going to be for everybody for a couple different reasons. 1 to 4 players, or restricted player count. Also, I enjoy this game as a solo game, but as a solo game, you are going to miss out on one really cool aspect of the game, which is the fact that you're able to donate a card to someone on their turn to help them solve an event. And when you play the solo version of the game, that's not in the game. So I wish they would have had some sort of mechanism where maybe you drew a random card and you could potentially use that to solve an event, or just something like that. I don't know if that would have unbalanced the game or made it a little bit too easy, but just let it be known that if you're playing a solo version of the game, you are going to miss out on that aspect of the game. Another con that I have with this game is that the theme does not come across as well as you might like it to. It's a very interesting theme, and some of the artwork I really do enjoy, and I'll tell you about that in a second. But it really just boils down to, oh, hey, we need to get this event down here. We need 3 reds, so that way we can get off this trophy up here. And when we get off this trophy up here, that'll let us recruit something from the middle so I can get this one dude with the 6 blues and I don't have to pay for him. And that's really what it boils down to. You're not going to be looking at the events. You're not going to be looking at this or that. You're going to be looking at the fact that, oh, I need 3 blues to get to this 4 red up here so I can get this trophy and do this, which is a little bit of a bummer. Another comment I have with this game goes down with the color in this game. And it just, the overall artwork of this game feels a little bit disjointed. The box looks completely different from the cards, and some of the cards look completely different, and some of the cards have color. And I love these cards with color. These cards with color really pop, and they're great looking cards. And if this whole game looked like this, it would probably raise this game up to an even higher level. And I'm about to tell you I really enjoy this game, but the artwork in the game is a little bit disjointed. Also, there's some coloring issues with the card. So for instance, the event card might show that you need 4 of the blue cat's head icons, which look like this, light blue. But on the event card, it looks dark blue. Now, this isn't a huge deal in most games. If you only have blue and red and yellow and green, you're like, oh, that one's blue. But in this game, there's like 2 different shades of red, and there's 2 different shades of yellow. So the fact that there's a light blue and a dark blue, but there's not actually a light blue and a dark blue, they just happen to look a little bit different, is a little bit disconcerting. It's not a deal breaker, but it is something that probably should have been noticed before it got into your hands. Any other cons that I have of the game? Oh, last but not least, if you're not in the mood for a difficult game, then this one might not be for you, because this is a pretty difficult game, especially if you start bumping up those difficulty modifiers, putting in those blood-spattered cards, which are super stinking mean, but I enjoy them. Yeah, so it's a pretty difficult game. Any other cons of the game? Theme doesn't come across. It's a little bit difficult. You play it solo, you're going to lose out on a little bit of the experience. It's also on the lighter side. That's another thing you need to know. While it is a difficult game, it's still a very light, simple game. And most of the choices you're going to make in this game are going to be pretty obvious choices. You probably have like maybe 2 or 3 choices most at your turn that are realistic choices. That's what I got. Moving on to the pros, I really enjoyed Witches of the Revolution. I'm a huge deck building fan. I have been since I first played Dominion. And this game does enough different things to warrant a spot on my shelf, and I think a spot on your shelf if you routinely hit 1 to 4 players. So what do I like about this game? First and foremost, I like the theme. I like the artwork an awful lot. Even though I mentioned a little bit earlier, I wish all the artwork was in color, I do like the artwork. I do like the theme. Next, component-wise, aside from those coloring issues and the artwork issues that I had, component-wise is fantastic. The box insert is outstanding. The board is super stinking useful. Take note, other game companies. This is what your board should look like. Yes, it may look cluttered and busy when you first look at it, but it's about user friendliness. It's not about appearance, and this is a very user-friendly board. And it's the kind of thing, this board by itself will probably save you your first couple games 1, 2, 3 times going back to the rule booklet. And little things like that are great for a game. I also like the quirks in this game. I like the different things in this game. It's a very difficult game, especially as you bump up that difficulty modifier, but it never feels like a particularly cheap game. You know what? I take that back. Sometimes it does feel like a cheap game. But for the most part, they just give you enough glimmers of hope, because as you gain these trophies, you can start using those trophies to solve those events, and then it's like this, you know, do I want to kind of spread ourselves out on these trophies, or do we want to completely focus on one specific type of card so we can solve that card and then we can gain the event, you know, the boon, I think it's called, when you gain the event. Now, those boons aren't particularly amazing, which I like because it's supposed to be a difficult game, but I really do like that aspect of the game. I also like how the Liberty track and the Moon track works. It's very clean, great graphic design on the board. I mean, it all just kind of circles back to that. I like how the event cards work. I like how mean some of the event cards are, you know, even though they start to feel a little bit cheap. I like how the fact you can kind of customize the game to make it more difficult or less difficult. And I will tell you, straight out of the box, the difficulty level, the easy difficulty level, is still pretty dang hard. So there's going to be tons of replay value in this game. I liked it as a solo game as well. I know a lot of you people wonder about how the solo plays. This is a very light, quick solo game. It's, you know, it does take up a good deal of table space, which is a little bit of a bummer, but it's relatively easy to set up, which is good. It's easy to learn. It's easy to teach. Oh, and I love the differences. This game tries to do some things different. Like, I love the aspect that shuffling your deck is bad because it's going to raise you on that moon track. I love the aspect that you have to physically spend your cards in order to recruit more cards. I think that's really interesting and neat. There's a good deal of variability with which events are going to come up and which blessings you have. I would like to see more of those out of the box, but there is enough that there's still going to be plenty of gameplay here. But I hope in the future this is popular enough to warrant expansion so you can get more blessings and more events that maybe do some various different, crazy different things. But if you couldn't tell, I enjoyed Witches of the Revolution. I think it's a rock solid 1 to 4 player game. I'm going to keep this. It's difficult, cooperative deck building, and if that looks like something that might be up your alley, I think this is definitely one you're going to enjoy. So that is Witches of the Revolution from Atlas Games. If it looks like it might be a cup of tea, be sure to check that one out. If you enjoyed this review, please be sure to click on that subscribe button down below in the comments below. Let me know. Witches of the Revolution. Do you know anything about them? You know what I found out about them? Actually, like a couple weeks ago? None of them were burned. Like, that's all just a myth. That happened over in England. They were stoned and pressed here in America. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But which is the revolution? Do you know much about it? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, thanks for your time, YouTube.